Most people don't feel poor because they lack money. They feel poor because their money never stays. It slips through their hands like sand. It arrives and disappears. And no matter how much they earn, the feeling never changes. More income, same pressure, more effort, same anxiety, more hours, same cage. If that sounds familiar, stay with me. Because in this audiobook, you are not going to learn how to chase money. You're going to learn how to control it, direct it, and multiply it without depending on your time. Welcome to Cash Flow Machines. This is not about getting rich fast. This is about building systems that make money behave. In this audiobook, you'll discover how to stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like a builder. Why income alone will never make you free. How to design financial systems that work even when you don't. And how to turn unstable earnings into predictable, controlled cash flow. This is educational, not financial advice, but it is something more powerful. It is a shift from reacting to designing, from earning to engineering, from hoping to building. And here is the line that will stay with you long after this ends. If your money depends on your presence, your freedom is temporary. Let that sink in, because everything changes the moment you understand that. You've been taught to survive money. Now you will learn to command it. And before we go further, make a quiet agreement with yourself. If something in this hits you, don't ignore it. If a sentence makes you uncomfortable, pay attention to it. And if clarity replaces confusion, even for a moment, consider liking this audiobook as a promise to yourself, not to anyone else. Because this is not entertainment. This is awareness, and awareness changes direction. Now, let's begin at the root. Because before you can build cash flow machines, you must understand why most people never do. But Chapter 1, The Salary Illusion. From the moment you were young, you were taught a simple equation. Work hard, get paid, repeat. It sounds responsible, it sounds stable, it sounds safe, but it is incomplete. Because no one told you what happens after the paycheck arrives. No one taught you how to control it, how to direct it, how to multiply it. So you learn to earn, but not to keep, not to grow, not to build. And that is where the trap begins. Most people believe income equals progress. But income without structure is just movement. It's motion without direction. And motion without direction eventually leads to exhaustion. You see people earning more than ever before, yet feeling more pressure than ever before. Why? Because the problem was never income. The problem was design. As reflected in the patterns you've already seen in similar teachings, most people aren't financially stuck because they're lazy. They're stuck because they were taught the wrong game. They were taught to chase increases instead of building systems. They were taught to celebrate raises. Instead of questioning dependency, they were taught to upgrade lifestyles instead of upgrading structures. So every increase becomes temporary relief, not permanent change. Think about it. If your expenses rise with your income, then your income didn't set you free, it just upgraded your pressure. And this is where most people stay trapped for years. They confuse activity with progress. They believe if they just earn a little more, everything will fix itself. But it doesn't, because the structure didn't change. And structure is everything. Two people can earn the same amount. One feels calm, the other feels constant stress. One builds stability, the other builds dependency. The difference is not intelligence, it is design. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't manage money. They react to it. They check their balance, feel relief or panic, adjust emotionally, and repeat. That is not control. That is survival. And survival is unpredictable. Cash flow mastery begins the moment money stops being emotional and starts becoming mechanical. When each dollar has a purpose before it arrives, when movement is planned, not guessed, when nothing is left to chance. Imagine your finances like a city. Without roads, traffic becomes chaos. Without signals, collisions multiply. Without direction, everything slows down. Money behaves the same way. Without systems, it becomes noise, and noise creates stress. This is why people feel overwhelmed, even when they're earning more, because their money has no structure, it has no path, it has no system. And anything without a system eventually breaks. Now, here's the shift. You don't need more income to start building control. You need clarity. You need awareness. You need honesty. Because the first step is not earning more. It's seeing clearly how much comes in, how much goes out, where it actually goes, not where you think it goes. No guessing, no assumptions, just truth. Because clarity creates control, and control creates calm. As emphasized in similar frameworks, financial discipline doesn't begin with restriction. It begins with understanding exactly what is happening beneath the surface. And once you see it clearly, you can change it. But until then, you're just reacting. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, do you control your money? Or does your money control your decisions? Do you decide where it goes? Or do you hope there's enough left? Because your answer to that question is the starting point of your transformation. And here's the truth most people avoid. If you don't design your money, your environment will. And your environment does not care about your freedom. It cares about your consumption. It wants you to spend, upgrade, repeat, because a reactive consumer is predictable. But a system builder is not, and that is where you're going. But before you can build systems, you must break one more illusion, because the next level is not about income at all. It's about understanding something far more powerful, something most people never see, something that separates effort from outcome. And once you see it, you will never look at money the same way again. That's where we're going next, and it will challenge everything you've been taught, because the real game has nothing to do with how hard you work. It has everything to do with how your money works, and that changes everything. Chapter 2. Effort is not the engine. You were taught that effort equals reward. Work more, earn more, push harder, get ahead, stay longer, prove your value. And for a while it seems true. You work harder, you earn a little more, you feel like you're moving forward. But then something strange happens. You hit a ceiling, not because you stopped working, but because effort has limits. Time has limits, energy has limits, attention has limits, and if your income depends entirely on those three, your growth will always slow down. This is where most people get stuck. They double down on effort, wake up earlier, stay up later, take on more, but they never stop to ask a deeper question. What if effort isn't the real engine? Because it's not. Effort is fuel, but fuel without a machine goes nowhere. Let that sink in. You don't need more fuel, you need a better machine. This is the difference between earning money and building cash flow. Earning requires presence. Cash flow requires structure. Earning stops when you stop. Cash flow continues when you step away. And that difference is everything. Think about someone working 2 jobs. They are putting in extreme effort, more than most. But are they free? No, because their income is tied directly to their time. Now think about someone who builds a system. It could be a digital product, a rental asset, a service that runs with minimal involvement. They might work intensely at the beginning, but over time, the system starts working for them. That is the shift from labor to leverage, from effort to design, from presence to process. And this is where most people hesitate. Because building systems requires something effort does not. Patience, discipline, delayed gratification. You don't get instant rewards. You build something that compounds. And in a world addicted to immediate results, that feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the doorway. Because the moment you understand that effort alone will never scale, you stop chasing exhaustion and you start building intelligently. Let's go deeper. Why do people cling to effort? Because it feels controllable. You can choose to work more today. You can choose to push harder right now. It gives you immediate feedback. But systems don't behave like that. They require upfront thinking, planning, testing, refining. They don't reward you instantly. They reward you later. And that delay breaks most people because they were never trained to think long term. They were trained to react short term. This is exactly why the majority stays dependent, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack patience. And patience is the foundation of leverage. Now here's a powerful shift. Stop asking, how can I earn more this week? Start asking, what can I build this month that will still pay me next year? That one question changes your direction because it forces you to think beyond effort. It forces you to think in systems, and systems create stability. Let's break it down simply. There are 2 types of income: active income and structured income. Active income requires your constant involvement. Structured income is supported by a system. Most people spend their entire lives maximizing the first and ignoring the second. That's like trying to fill a bucket without fixing the holes. You keep pouring, but nothing stays. And eventually, you get tired. Here's the truth. You don't escape the cycle by working harder. You escape it by building smarter. And smarter means this: every dollar you earn should have a mission. Some dollars cover life. Some dollars protect you. Some dollars build future systems. If every dollar is spent, nothing is built. And if nothing is built, you stay dependent. This is why structure matters more than income. Because structure decides what your money becomes, not your effort, not your intention. Structure. And here's something most people overlook. You don't need to be rich to start building systems. You need to be intentional. Because even small amounts, directed correctly, compound over time. But small amounts, left unstructured, disappear. So the goal is not to wait until you earn more. The goal is to start designing now. Because design scales, habits scale, systems scale, but chaos just repeats. Now pause again. Think about your current situation. If you stopped working today, how long would your income continue? Days, weeks, months? For most people, the answer is uncomfortable, and that discomfort is clarity. It shows you exactly where you stand, not emotionally, not theoretically, mechanically. And once you see it, you can change it, because awareness is the first step of control. Now here's the next layer. Most people think systems are complicated. They imagine complex businesses, advanced investments, things that feel out of reach. But systems are not about complexity. They are about consistency. A system is simply something that produces results without requiring constant decision-making. It reduces thinking. It removes emotion. It creates reliability. And that's what you're building, not just income, but predictability. Because unpredictability is what creates stress. When you don't know what's coming next, you stay alert, you stay tense, you stay reactive. But when systems are in place, you gain something far more valuable than money. You gain calm, and calm is a form of wealth most people never experience. Now here's a quiet truth. You don't need 10 systems. You need one that works. Then another, slowly, intentionally, until your income is no longer fragile, until your money no longer depends on your mood, your energy, your time, until it becomes structured, reliable, controlled. And that is when everything changes. But before you can build that, there is one more mental shift you must make. Because even if you understand systems, if your thinking stays emotional, you will sabotage your own structure, and that's what we're going to confront next. Because the real battle is not external, it's internal. It's how you think about money when no one is watching. And that's where the transformation becomes real. Chapter 3. The Emotional Trap. Money is not just numbers, it's behavior, it's patterns. It's emotion disguised as logic. And this is where most systems fail, before they even begin. Because people don't lose money due to lack of knowledge. They lose money because of how they feel. Think about it. Impulse purchases, emotional spending, avoiding looking at your accounts, ignoring reality until it becomes urgent. These are not financial problems, they are emotional reactions. And as long as money stays emotional, it will never become mechanical. You will never control it, because emotion reacts. But systems, they operate. That's the difference. And until you separate the two, you will keep sabotaging your own progress. This is something deeply rooted. From childhood, money was never neutral. It was tied to reward, to fear, to comparison, to identity. You were praised for having it, stressed when lacking it, judged based on it. So you never learned to see money as a tool. You learned to feel it. And feelings are unstable. One day you feel confident. The next day you feel uncertain. One moment you feel in control. The next, reactive. Now imagine building financial systems on top of that. It collapses. Because systems require consistency. And emotion fluctuates. This is why most people can't stick to budgets. They don't lack discipline. They lack emotional separation. They try to control money while being controlled by feelings. And that creates friction. So here's the shift. You must start seeing money differently. Not as something personal, but as something functional. Money is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of your structure. Let that settle. Because this one idea removes pressure. It removes shame. It removes ego. And it replaces it with clarity. If your system is weak, money leaks. If your system is strong, money stabilizes. It's not about who you are. It's about what you built. Now let's go deeper. Why do people avoid looking at their finances? Because they fear what they might see. But avoidance does not remove reality. It delays it. And delayed reality becomes amplified. This is how small issues become big problems. Not because they were complicated, but because they were ignored. You must face it directly, not emotionally, mechanically, Look at your numbers like an engineer, not like a victim. Observe patterns, track flows, identify leaks, no judgment, just data. Because data gives you power, and power removes fear. This is the moment where everything starts to shift. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, how is this system behaving? That one change turns confusion into clarity. Now, instead of reacting, you analyze. Instead of stressing, you adjust. Instead of guessing, you design. And this is where control begins. But there's another layer most people miss: comparison. In today's world, you are constantly exposed to other people's financial lives. Social media highlights, luxury displays, quick success stories. And without realizing it, you start measuring yourself against illusions. This creates pressure. It creates urgency. It pushes you to make decisions not based on logic, but based on perception. You spend to match. You invest blindly to catch up. You rush into things without structure, and that destroys systems. Because systems require patience, and comparison destroys patience. So you must disconnect, not from ambition, but from illusion. Your financial journey is not a race. It's a construction project, and construction takes time. Now, here's something powerful. When you remove emotion from money, you gain something most people never experience: clarity under pressure. You don't panic when unexpected expenses appear. You don't overreact when income fluctuates. You don't make impulsive decisions out of fear or excitement. You stay grounded. You stay focused. You stay in control. And that is real power, because anyone can manage money when things are easy, but very few can stay steady when things are uncertain. That's where systems prove themselves. Now pause again. Ask yourself honestly, do your financial decisions come from clarity or from emotion? Do you spend with intention or reaction? Do you build slowly or chase quickly? Because your answers reveal your patterns, and patterns shape outcomes. Now, here's the transition. You've seen the illusion of salary. You've understood the limits of effort. You've recognized the emotional traps. Now it's time to build something real, something structured, something that turns movement into direction. Because understanding is not enough. You must apply. And what comes next is where theory becomes action, where awareness becomes structure, where money finally starts working with you, not against you. Chapter 4 is where we begin building your first real system, and it starts simpler than you think, but more powerful than you expect. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. Chapter 4, the first system. Most people think systems are complicated. They imagine spreadsheets, strategies, investments, complex structures that feel far away from their current reality. So they delay, they wait until they have more money, they wait until they understand more, they wait until they feel ready. And while they wait, nothing changes. Because here's the truth. The first system you build is not external. It's internal. It's how money moves through your life. Before you build assets, before you invest, before you scale, you must control the flow. Because if you cannot direct small amounts, you will mismanage large ones. That's not a guess. That's a pattern repeated everywhere. More money does not fix poor structure. It amplifies it. So this is where you begin, not with complexity, but with clarity and direction. The first system is simple. Every dollar must have a role before it arrives, not after, before. This is where most people fail. They receive money, then decide what to do with it, and that creates chaos. Because decisions made after the fact are influenced by emotion, impulse, desire, pressure, but decisions made before are controlled, intentional, stable. So here's your first shift. Stop asking, what will I do with this money? Start deciding, what is this money already assigned to do? That one change turns reaction into design. Now let's make it practical. Every inflow of money should be divided into clear categories, not complicated, just clear. A portion sustains your life. A portion protects your stability. A portion builds your future systems. That's it. Simple, but powerful. Because now, money is not random. It is directed, it has purpose, and purpose creates control. Now, here's where discipline enters. You don't negotiate with the system, you follow it. Because the moment you start bending the structure, you return to chaos. This is why discipline matters, not as punishment, but as protection. Protection from your own impulses, from your own inconsistencies, from your own emotions. Because as you've already seen in patterns of behavior, most people don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they don't do what they know consistently. Consistency is what turns systems into results. Now here's something important. This first system is not about restriction. It's about direction. You're not limiting your money, you're guiding it. And guidance creates momentum. Momentum creates progress. And progress builds confidence. That's how it starts. Small, controlled, consistent. Now let's go deeper. Most people think savings is the goal. It's not. Savings is stability. But stability alone does not create freedom. You don't just want money sitting. You want money moving intelligently. You want it positioned, allocated, prepared to become something more. This is where your third category becomes powerful. The portion that builds systems. At first, it may feel small. That's fine. Because size doesn't matter at the beginning. Consistency does. Even small amounts, directed consistently, become significant over time. This is how systems are born, not from large actions, but from repeated, intentional ones. Now pause again. Look at your current flow right now. If money enters your life today, do you already know exactly where it goes, or do you figure it out in the moment? Because that answer defines your structure, and your structure defines your future. Now here's another layer. This system removes something dangerous. Decision fatigue. Every time you have to decide what to do with money, you create friction, and friction leads to inconsistency. Some days you're disciplined, some days you're not. Some days you're focused, some days you're emotional. And that inconsistency destroys progress. But systems remove that. They reduce decisions. They create automation in behavior. So you don't rely on motivation, you rely on structure. And structure is reliable. Now imagine this. Every time money enters your life, it automatically flows into its assigned roles. No stress, no confusion, no hesitation, just movement. Controlled movement. That's the beginning of cash flow mastery, not big wins, not sudden changes, but predictable flow. And predictable flow creates calm. Now here's the shift you must accept. This will feel uncomfortable at first because you're changing patterns, you're breaking habits, you're removing emotional decisions, and your mind will resist. It will try to justify exceptions. It's just this once. I deserve this. I'll fix it later. But later never builds systems. Now does. So you must stay firm, not perfect, but consistent, because consistency builds identity, and identity drives behavior. You stop being someone who reacts to money. You become someone who directs it. That is the transformation. Now here's the next step. Once your flow is controlled, once your system is stable, you are ready for the next level, because controlling money is only the beginning. The real power comes when money starts multiplying, when your systems begin to produce without your constant input. That's where we're going next. Because in Chapter 5, you will understand a concept that separates earners from builders, and once you see it, you will never look at income the same way again. Chapter 5. The separation of effort and outcome. There is a moment in every person's financial journey where things either change permanently or repeat indefinitely. That moment is not when you earn more. It's when you understand this. Effort and outcome are not the same thing. Let that land, because most people spend their entire lives believing they are directly connected. I worked more, so I should earn more. I tried harder, so I deserve more. And emotionally, that feels right. But structurally, it's not how systems work. Because in a system, the outcome is not determined by how hard you work. It's determined by how the system is designed. This is why two people can put in similar effort and experience completely different results. One builds momentum, the other stays stuck. One scales, the other plateaus, not because of effort, but because of structure. Now, this idea can feel uncomfortable because it removes something many people rely on: control through effort. When you believe effort controls outcomes, you feel safe. You believe, if I just work harder, I'll fix everything. But when you realize that effort is only one piece, and not the most important one, you are forced to think differently. You are forced to design. And design requires awareness. This is why most people stay trapped in the effort loop. They don't lack discipline. They lack direction. They push harder without changing the system. And pushing harder inside a broken system only leads to faster burnout. Now let's make this real. Imagine two individuals. Both earn the same income. Both work similar hours. But one of them channels a portion of their income into building systems. Small at first, consistent, intentional. The other spends everything, upgrades lifestyle, responds emotionally. Now fast forward. Months pass, years pass. One begins to experience something different. Their money starts producing. Small returns at first, then growing, then stabilizing, while the other is still trading time for income, still dependent, still reactive. Same effort, different outcome. Because one separated effort from outcome and built something in between, a system. That is the bridge between work and results. Now here's the shift. Stop measuring your progress by how hard you work. Start measuring it by what continues working after you stop. That question will change everything. What continues if I pause? If the answer is nothing, then your system is incomplete. And that's not failure, that's awareness, because now you know what to build. Now here's something deeper. Most people are addicted to effort, not because they love working, but because It gives them immediate validation. You work, you get paid, you act, you get rewarded. It's predictable, it's familiar, but systems delay validation. You build, and nothing happens immediately. You invest time, and results are invisible at first. You create something, and it doesn't pay you right away. That silence breaks most people because they interpret it as failure, but it's not. It's incubation. It's the system forming beneath the surface, and if you stay consistent, it eventually emerges. Now think about this. A tree does not grow the moment you plant the seed, but the growth is happening, invisible, slow, consistent, until one day it becomes visible. Systems behave the same way. They grow quietly before they produce loudly. And this is where discipline matters again, because you must continue building without immediate reward. You must trust the process without constant feedback, and that requires something most people never develop: long-term thinking. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, are you building something that will pay you later, or only working for what pays you now? Because your answer determines your trajectory. Now here's the next layer. Once you understand this separation, you stop chasing opportunities that only pay once, and you start focusing on structures that pay repeatedly. This is where your mindset shifts from transactions to systems, from one-time income to ongoing flow, from effort to leverage, and leverage is what creates freedom. Not effort, not income, leverage, because leverage allows small actions to create large outcomes. Now don't misunderstand this. You still need effort, but effort is no longer the goal. It's the input, the beginning, not the destination. And when you use effort to build systems, instead of chasing income, everything starts to compound. Now here's a powerful realization. You don't need a perfect system. You need a working one, something simple, something real, something that produces even slightly. Because once something works, you can improve it, you can scale it, you can refine it, but you cannot scale nothing. So your goal is not perfection, it's function. Build something that works, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Because small systems grow, but unstarted ideas do not. Now here's where we transition again. You've separated effort from outcome. You've understood the role of systems. Now it's time to explore something deeper. Because even with systems, there is a hidden force that determines whether they succeed or fail. And most people never see it. It's not money. It's not knowledge. It's not opportunity. It's attention. Where you place your attention determines what grows and what dies. And if you don't control it, you will build nothing. That's what we're stepping into next. Because Chapter 6 will show you why most people stay distracted and how distraction silently destroys cash flow. Chapter 6. Where attention goes, money follows. There is a silent force controlling your financial life right now. It doesn't show up in your bank account. It doesn't appear on any statement, and most people never notice it. But it shapes everything. Your attention, where you focus, determines what grows, and where you don't, slowly disappears. This is not just about productivity. This is about direction. Because money does not grow where you wish it would. It grows where you consistently place your awareness. Now think about your daily life. How much of your attention is intentional, and how much is captured? Notifications, scrolling, endless information, short bursts of distraction that feel harmless but compound. And while your attention is scattered, Your systems are neglected because systems require focus, not intensity, consistency, and consistency is impossible when your attention is fragmented. This is one of the biggest hidden reasons people fail to build cash flow. Not lack of knowledge, not lack of opportunity, lack of sustained attention. They start building something, then get distracted. They begin a system, then shift focus. They create momentum, then lose it over and over again because attention is unstable, and unstable attention cannot build stable systems. Now here's something deeper. Distraction doesn't just waste time. It breaks continuity, and continuity is what creates results. Imagine trying to build something, but every few minutes you stop, you reset, you restart. That's what distraction does to your financial life. It keeps you in a loop of beginnings, but never completion. And without completion, there is no system, only effort. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't have a time problem. They have an attention problem. They have enough time to build something meaningful, but they don't protect their focus long enough to do it. Because attention today is constantly under attack, and if you don't defend it, you lose it. This is why discipline is not just about action. It's about protection, protecting your time, protecting your focus, protecting your direction. Because once your attention is stable, your actions become consistent. And consistent actions build systems. Now think about this. Every system you want to build requires repeated attention, small actions done over time, not once, not occasionally, but consistently. And consistency requires focus. So here's the shift. Stop asking, do I have time? Start asking, where is my attention going? Because time exists. Attention decides how it's used. Now let's make it practical. You don't need to eliminate all distractions. That's unrealistic. But you must reduce the ones that break your momentum. You must create windows where your attention is protected, where your focus is uninterrupted, where you can build without interference. Even 1 hour, one focused hour a day can change everything because it compounds. As you've seen in patterns of growth, small consistent blocks of focused effort, even just an hour, can completely reshape direction over time. Not because the hour is special, but because it is intentional, it is protected, it is directed, and that is enough. Now imagine this. Every day, you dedicate one focused hour to building your system. No distractions, no interruptions, no multitasking, just progress. At first, it feels slow, but then momentum builds, clarity increases, confidence grows, and suddenly you are no longer thinking about building systems. You are building them. That is the shift from intention to execution. Now here's something powerful. Attention doesn't just build systems, it also shapes identity. If you consistently focus on growth, you become someone who grows. If you consistently focus on distraction, you become someone who drifts. And identity determines behavior. So this is not just about money, it's about who you become in the process. Someone reactive, or someone intentional, someone scattered, or someone focused, someone dependent, or someone building. Now pause again. Be honest with yourself. Where is your attention going every day? Is it aligned with what you want to build, or what distracts you from building it? Because your answer explains your results. Now here's the next layer. Once you control your attention, you unlock something powerful. Depth. You can go deeper into your systems, refine them, improve them, optimize them, and depth creates efficiency. Efficiency creates leverage, and leverage creates freedom. So attention is not just a starting point. It is a multiplier. It amplifies everything you do. Now here's where we transition. You've understood systems. You've separated effort from outcome. You've controlled your flow. You've recognized the role of attention. Now it's time to build something tangible. Because ideas are not enough. You must create assets, real structures that produce value. And that's where Chapter 7 begins. Because now we move from internal systems to external ones, from control to creation, from managing money to making money work. And once you step into that, everything starts to shift again. Dear viewers, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 7. Build what pays you twice. There is a moment where everything shifts, not when you earn more, not when you save more, but when something you created pays you again, without you showing up again. That is the moment you stop being just a worker and start becoming a builder, because until that happens, you are still inside the cycle. Effort to income to stop to repeat. But the moment something continues without you, a new loop begins. Create to earn to continue to scale. And that loop is where freedom starts forming. Now let's make this clear. An asset is not something you own. An asset is something that produces. It generates value. It generates income. It continues beyond your immediate effort. And this is where most people misunderstand. They think assets are only big things, properties, companies, large investments. But assets begin small. They begin simple. They begin with something that works. Because the goal is not size. The goal is function, something that pays you twice. Once when you create it, and again, every time it continues working. Now think about your current situation. How many things in your life still produce after you stop? Most people have none, and that's why they feel stuck. Because everything resets to zero every single day, every morning. They start again. That's not stability, that's dependency. So your mission now is to break that pattern. Not all at once, but intentionally. You start by building something that produces once, then continues. Now let's explore examples in a simple way. A skill turned into a digital product. A service turned into a repeatable process. A system that delivers value without constant input. At first, it requires effort, focused effort. But once it's built, it doesn't disappear. It stays. It produces. It becomes a machine. And this is where your thinking must change. Stop asking, how can I earn today? Start asking, what can I build today that pays tomorrow? That question changes your direction completely. Because now you are no longer chasing income. You are creating it. Now here's something important. Building assets feels slower at the beginning because effort is front-loaded. You work and nothing happens immediately. You create and results are delayed. And that delay challenges your patience, but remember what you learned. Systems grow quietly before they pay loudly. So you must trust the process. Now here's a deeper layer. When you build something that pays you twice, you reclaim something most people lose: time. Because time is what effort consumes, but systems give it back. And when you reclaim time, you gain the ability to build more, to think clearer, to expand. This is how momentum compounds. One system gives you time. That time builds another system. That system gives you more time. And slowly, your life shifts from constant work to controlled creation. Now pause. Ask yourself this honestly. What are you building right now? That will still produce 6 months from today, not what you're working on, what you're building, because those are not the same. Working ends, building continues, and that difference defines your future. Now here's the truth most people avoid. Building assets requires discomfort because it forces you to delay rewards, to invest effort now for outcomes later. And in a world built on instant gratification, that feels unnatural. But unnatural is often necessary for growth because comfort keeps you in cycles, discomfort moves you forward. Now think about this. Every system you build reduces your dependency. Every asset you create increases your control. Every step you take moves you closer to stability, not because it's fast, but because it's real. Now here's something powerful. You don't need to build the perfect asset. You need to build the first one, something simple, something functional, something that proves to you that this works. Because once you experience it, everything changes. You stop doubting. You stop hesitating. You start expanding. And that's when growth accelerates. Now here's where we go deeper. Because building assets is not just about creation. It's about selection. Choosing what to build and what to ignore. Because not everything is worth your time. And if you don't choose wisely, you will waste energy. So in the next chapter, we will break down something critical. How to identify what is actually worth building. Because not all opportunities create cash flow. Some create distraction. And if you don't know the difference, you will stay busy, but never free. That's where we're going next. And it will sharpen your direction even further. Chapter 8, The Discipline of Selection. Not everything that makes money builds freedom. That's a truth most people learn too late. Because once you start thinking in systems, you will begin to see opportunities everywhere. Ideas, projects, side hustles, investments. And at first, it feels exciting. It feels like progress. But here's the danger. More options can create more distraction because not every opportunity is aligned with cash flow. Some are just noise, disguised as potential. And if you chase everything, you build nothing. So this chapter is about something critical. Not how to build, but what to build. Because your direction determines your outcome. Now let's go deeper. Most people choose opportunities based on emotion, excitement, urgency, fear of missing out. This is trending. Everyone is doing this. I might miss my chance. And that emotional decision leads to scattered effort. You start something, then switch again. And after months or years, you have activity, but no systems. This is one of the biggest traps. Being busy without building, because movement feels like progress. But only structure creates results. Now here's the shift. You must become selective, not reactive, not impulsive. Selective, because every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. And if you don't choose carefully, you will waste your most valuable resource. Attention. Now let's simplify this. Before you commit to building anything, ask 3 questions. Does this create repeatable value? Does this reduce my dependency over time? Does this have the potential to continue without my constant presence? If the answer is no, it might generate income, but it will not build freedom. And that difference matters. Now here's something important. Not all income is equal. Some income traps you. Some income frees you. And the difference is not the amount. It's the structure. You can earn a lot and still be dependent, or earn less and be building something that grows. That's why selection matters. Because your choices today shape your systems tomorrow. Now think about your current path. Are you building something that compounds or something that resets? Because compounding is what creates exponential growth, not linear effort. Now here's a deeper layer. Most people are afraid to commit, so they keep options open. They try multiple things. They avoid going deep. Because depth requires risk. It requires focus. It requires saying no. But without depth, there is no mastery. And without mastery, there is no system, only scattered attempts. This is where discipline returns, not just in action, but in decision, choosing one direction and staying with it long enough for it to work. Because systems don't reward speed, they reward consistency. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, how many things have you started but not finished? How many directions have you explored without committing? Because every unfinished attempt is lost potential, not because it couldn't work, but because it wasn't given enough time. Now here's the truth. You don't need more ideas, you need more execution, and execution requires focus. So your goal is simple. Choose one thing, one system, one direction, and commit. Not forever, but long enough to see results. Because results create clarity, and clarity removes doubt. Now here's something powerful. When you focus deeply on one system, you start to understand it. You refine it, you improve it, you optimize it. And that's where real growth happens. Not in starting, but in continuing. Now think about this. If you build one system well, it can support you. If you build 5 systems poorly, they collapse. So depth beats breadth every time. Now here's the next layer. Once you choose what to build, you must protect it. From distractions, from new ideas, or from comparison. Because the moment you shift focus, you break momentum, and momentum is everything. It's what carries you through slow phases. It's what keeps you moving when results are not visible. And without it, you restart again and again. So your job is not just to build, it's to stay. Stay focused, stay committed, stay consistent long enough for the system to respond. Now here's where we transition. You've learned how to choose, how to focus, how to commit. Now it's time to understand something deeper. Because even with the right system, even with focus, there is still one thing that determines whether it grows or stays small, and that is scale. Because building one system is powerful, but scaling it is what changes your life. That's where we're going next. Because Chapter 9 will show you how to take something small and turn it into something that multiplies. Chapter 9, From Small Systems to Scalable Machines. Most people never reach freedom, not because they don't start, but because they stop too early. They build something small, see little result, and then pause. They celebrate too soon, or worse, they get distracted again, because building something that works once feels like success, but it's not. It's proof. Proof that the system can function. But function is not freedom. Scale is. This is where the real transformation begins, because a system that works once can be improved. A system that works twice can be refined. A system that works consistently can be scaled. And scaling is what turns effort into leverage, Now let's simplify this. Scaling means increasing output without increasing effort at the same rate. Let that land, because this is the opposite of how most people live. They increase effort to increase income. More hours, more work, more pressure, but systems scale differently. They allow you to increase results without doubling your time. That's the power. Now here's the mistake most people make. They build something and immediately try to build something new, instead of asking the most important question: how can I make this better before I make something else? Because improvement creates efficiency, and efficiency creates scale. Now think about this. If you have a system that produces a small result, you don't need a new idea. You need to amplify the one that works. Make it smoother, make it faster, make it more consistent, because consistency is what allows growth. Now here's a deeper layer. Scaling is not about doing more, it's about removing friction. Every system has friction points, things that slow it down, things that require unnecessary effort, things that break consistency, and your job is to identify them and remove them. Because when friction decreases, flow increases, and flow creates momentum. Now imagine this. You have a system that produces a small, steady result. You refine it. You remove inefficiencies. You make it more reliable. And slowly, it starts producing more. Not because you worked harder, but because the system improved. That's scale. Now here's something important. Scaling requires patience, because growth is not always immediate. It builds gradually, layer by layer, adjustment by adjustment. And if you rush, you break the system. This is why many people fail at this stage. They try to force growth. They push too fast, they skip refinement, and the system collapses because it wasn't ready. So you must respect the process. Build, test, refine, then scale in that order. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, are you trying to build something new or improve something that already works? Because your answer reveals your mindset. Builders refine, chasers jump, and jumping breaks momentum. Now here's the next level. Once your system becomes stable, you can start multiplying it, duplicating what works, expanding its reach, increasing its impact, and this is where growth accelerates. Because now, you're not starting from zero. You're building on a foundation, and foundations support expansion. Now think about this. One small system becomes two. Two become three. Three become a network. And suddenly, your income is no longer dependent on one source. It becomes diversified, layered, stable, and that stability creates confidence. Now here's a powerful realization. You don't need one perfect system. You need multiple simple ones working together, because multiple systems reduce risk. If one slows down, others continue. If one changes, others support. And that creates resilience. Now here's something deeper. Scaling is not just external, it's internal. Your mindset must expand, because as your systems grow, your responsibilities shift. You move from doing everything to managing processes, from action to oversight, from effort to strategy. And that transition is uncomfortable because it requires you to let go, to trust systems, to stop controlling every detail. But that's the evolution, from worker to builder to operator. And each level requires a different way of thinking. Now here's where we transition. You've built your first system. You've learned how to refine it. You've begun to understand scale. Now it's time to protect it, because growth attracts pressure. Distractions return, opportunities appear, challenges increase, and if you're not careful, you can lose everything you built. That's what Chapter 10 is about, protection, because building systems is powerful, but protecting them is what keeps them alive. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Chapter 10. Protect the machine. Building a system is powerful. Scaling a system is transformative, but losing a system is devastating, and it happens more often than you think. Not because the system didn't work, but because it wasn't protected. This is the stage where most people become careless. They've built something. They've seen results. They've gained confidence, and slowly they relax. They stop paying attention to the details. They stop maintaining the structure. They assume it will continue automatically. But here's the truth. Systems don't fail suddenly. They decay quietly. A small inconsistency here, a missed check there, a slight shift in focus, and over time, the machine weakens until one day it stops. And the person looks back and says, I don't know what happened, but something always happened. It was just ignored. This is why protection matters, because what you build must be maintained. Now let's go deeper. Protection is not about fear. It's about awareness, understanding that systems are alive. They require attention, not constant effort, but consistent oversight. You don't need to rebuild every day, but you must observe, adjust, refine. Because the environment changes, markets shift, people change, conditions evolve. And if your system stays static, it becomes outdated. So protection means staying engaged, not emotionally, but strategically. Now here's something important. As your systems grow, so do distractions. New opportunities, new ideas, new directions, and they will tempt you because they promise faster growth, bigger returns, quicker results. But here's the danger. Every time you chase something new, you risk neglecting what already works. And neglect kills systems. This is where discipline becomes protection. Saying no to protect what you've built. Staying focused even when new options appear, because not everything that looks like growth is growth. Some things are just detours. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, are you protecting what you've built or constantly chasing what's next? Because your answer determines your stability. Now here's another layer. Protection also means simplicity. The more complex your system becomes, the harder it is to maintain. More moving parts, more dependencies, more points of failure, and complexity increases risk. So your goal is not just to build, but to simplify, to create systems that are strong, but not fragile, reliable, but not complicated, because simple systems last. Now think about this. If you cannot explain your system clearly, you cannot control it. Clarity creates control, and control creates stability. Now here's something deeper. Protection also means discipline in your behavior, because you are part of the system. Your habits, your decisions, your consistency all affect the outcome. If you become inconsistent, the system reflects it. If you lose focus, the system weakens. So protecting your system means protecting your standards, showing up consistently, maintaining structure, staying aligned, even when it feels repetitive, because repetition is what keeps systems alive. Now here's the truth. Maintenance is not exciting. It doesn't feel like growth. It feels like routine. But routine is what preserves progress. And without preservation, growth disappears. Now, here's a powerful shift. Stop thinking, I already built this. Start thinking, I am responsible for keeping this alive, because ownership requires attention. Now imagine this. You've built a system that produces consistently. It supports you. It gives you stability. Now your job is not to rebuild it every day, but to protect it, watch it, improve it, ensure it continues. That's the mindset. Builder to operator. Now here's where we transition. You've built systems. You've scaled them. You've learned to protect them. Now it's time to expand your thinking even further, because systems alone are not the final level. There is something beyond systems, something that multiplies everything you've built, and that is networks. Because one system is powerful, multiple systems are stronger, but connected systems create exponential growth. That's where we're going next, because Chapter 11 will show you how to connect what you've built and turn it into something far greater than individual parts. Chapter 11, The Power of Connected Systems. A single system can change your income, but connected systems can change your entire life. This is where the game expands, because until now, you've been building individual machines, each one producing, each one functioning, each one creating its own flow. And that is powerful. But when those systems begin to connect, something different happens. They stop operating separately and start amplifying each other. That's when growth becomes exponential. Now let's make this simple. Imagine one system that produces income. That's good. Now imagine that system feeds another system, and that second system improves the first. Now imagine a third system that supports both. Suddenly, you don't just have systems, you have a network, and networks multiply results. Now here's the key shift. Stop thinking in isolated pieces. Start thinking in connections, because the strongest structures are not standalone. They are integrated, each part supporting the other, each part strengthening the whole. Now think about this. Most people build randomly. They create something here, try something there, start something new, but nothing connects. So everything stays small. Disconnected effort creates limited results, but connected systems create momentum. Now here's something deeper. When systems are connected, they reduce friction, they share resources, they share attention, they share growth. And that makes everything more efficient, because instead of starting from zero each time, you are building on what already exists. That's leverage at a higher level. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, are the things you are building connected or separate? Because connection is what creates acceleration. Now here's another layer. Connected systems create resilience. If one slows down, others support. If one changes, others adapt. And that stability reduces risk, because you are no longer dependent on a single source. You have structure, layered structure. Now here's something powerful. When systems connect, they begin to create flow, not just income, but movement, energy moving between parts, value circulating, and circulation is what keeps systems alive. Just like in nature, nothing survives in isolation. Everything connects, everything flows, and your financial life is no different. Now let's go deeper. Most people think scaling is about increasing output, but real scaling is about integration, how well your systems work together, how efficiently they support each other, how seamlessly they operate. Because when systems are aligned, growth becomes easier, more natural, less forced. Now here's the shift. You are no longer just building systems. You are designing an ecosystem, a structure where everything has a role, everything has a place, everything contributes, and that ecosystem becomes your foundation. Now here's something important. This doesn't happen overnight. Connection takes time. You build one system, then another. Then you find ways to link them, step by step, layer by layer, and slowly the network forms. Now think about this. Each system you build is a piece of something bigger, not just an isolated result, but part of a larger structure. And when you start seeing it that way, your decisions change. You stop building randomly. You start building intentionally. Now here's a deeper realization. Connected systems require clarity because confusion breaks connection. If you don't understand how something fits, you cannot integrate it. So your goal is not just to build more. It's to understand more, to see how everything links. Now pause again. Look at what you've built so far, even if it's small, even if it's early. Ask yourself, how can this connect to something else? Because that question unlocks the next level. Now here's where we transition. You've built systems, you've scaled them, you've protected them, you've started connecting them. Now it's time to understand something even deeper, because even the strongest network can be destroyed by one thing, and that thing is instability, because growth without stability is fragile, and fragile systems break under pressure. That's what Chapter 12 is about, stability, because without it, everything you've built can collapse, and with it, everything you build can last. Chapter 12, stability before expansion. There is a hidden danger in growth. It feels like progress. It looks like success. It creates momentum. But if it's built on instability, it becomes fragile, and fragile systems eventually break. This is where many people lose everything they built, not because they didn't work hard, not because they didn't understand systems, but because they expanded before they stabilized. And when pressure came, the structure collapsed. So this chapter is about something critical, not growth, not scaling, but stability, because stability is what allows growth to last. Now let's go deeper. What does stability actually mean? It means your systems are predictable. They perform consistently. They don't rely on perfect conditions. They can handle fluctuations, because the reality is nothing stays constant. Income shifts, markets change, opportunities evolve, and if your systems cannot adapt, they break. So stability is not about control. It's about resilience, the ability to continue, even when things change. Now here's the truth. Most people build systems that only work when everything goes right. But real systems are designed to survive when things go wrong. That's the difference. Now think about this. If your income depends on one source, you are exposed. If your system depends on perfect timing, you are vulnerable. If your structure cannot handle disruption, you are unstable. And instability creates stress, because deep down, you know it can fall apart. Now here's the shift. You must build systems that are strong, not just functional. Systems that can handle pressure. Systems that can continue even when conditions are not ideal. Now, how do you do that? You simplify, you diversify, you prepare. Let's break that down. Simplify your systems, remove unnecessary complexity, reduce points of failure, make processes clear and repeatable, because complexity creates fragility, and simplicity creates strength. Now diversify your systems, not randomly, but intentionally. Multiple sources of flow, multiple layers of support. So if one slows down, others continue, because stability comes from structure, not luck. Now prepare for disruption, not emotionally, but practically. Expect variation, expect change, expect challenges, and design your systems to handle them. All because preparation removes fear. Now here's something deeper. Stability is not just external, it's internal. Your mindset must be stable, because if you panic, your decisions break the system. If you react emotionally, you disrupt your own structure, so stability starts with you. Your thinking, your discipline, your awareness. Because systems reflect their builder. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, if something unexpected happened tomorrow, would your systems hold? Or would everything depend on you reacting quickly? Because that answer reveals your level of stability. Now here's another layer. Stability creates confidence. Not fake confidence, not emotional confidence, but grounded confidence. Because you know your systems work. You know they can handle pressure. You know they are not fragile. And that confidence changes how you move. You stop rushing. You stop panicking. You stop chasing. You start building calmly, intentionally. Now here's something powerful. When your systems are stable, growth becomes safer. You can expand without fear. You can scale without risking collapse, because your foundation can support it. Now think about this. A building without a strong foundation cannot go higher. But with a strong base, expansion becomes possible. That's what you're creating, not just income, not just systems, but a foundation. Now here's the transition. You've built systems. You've scaled them. You've connected them. You've stabilized them. Now it's time to evolve again. Because there is one final shift that separates those who build systems from those who master them. And that shift is this: identity. Because what you build will always reflect who you are. And if your identity doesn't evolve, your systems will not either. That's where we're going next. Because Chapter 13 will change how you see yourself in this entire process. And once that changes, everything else follows. Chapter 13. Become the system builder. There is a point in every transformation where knowledge is no longer enough. You understand the concepts. You see the patterns. You know what to do. But something still holds people back. They haven't changed who they are. Because no matter how strong your systems are, they will always reflect your identity. If you think like a spender, you will break your systems. If you think like a reactor, you will destabilize your flow. If you think like an employee, you will limit your structure. So this is the shift. Not what you do, but who you become. Because builders think differently. They don't chase income. They design it. They don't react to money. They direct it. They don't wait for opportunities. They create them. And that identity is what sustains everything you've built. Now, let's go deeper. That most people try to change their results without changing their identity. They say, I want more money, I want more freedom, I want better outcomes, but they keep the same patterns, the same habits, the same thinking, the same reactions. And that creates conflict, because new results require a new version of you. So you must ask yourself a different question, not, what do I want to achieve, but who do I need to become to sustain it? Because achieving something once is easy compared to maintaining it. And maintenance requires identity. Now here's something powerful. Identity is built through repetition, not intention. You don't become a builder by thinking about it. You become a builder by acting like one, consistently, making decisions like one, handling money like one, thinking long-term like one, every single day. Now think about this. If you consistently direct your money, you become someone who controls flow. If you consistently build systems, you become someone who creates leverage. If you consistently protect your structure, you become someone who sustains growth. And over time, that becomes natural. That becomes who you are. Now here's the truth. Most people never reach financial freedom because they never become the person who can hold it. They chase results without building identity, and when results come, they lose them because they don't have the structure internally to support them externally. So this is your focus now, not just building systems, but becoming the system builder. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, when you make financial decisions, are you thinking like a builder or reacting like a consumer? Because that difference shapes everything. Now here's another layer. Builders think in time differently. They don't chase immediate rewards. They think in years. They think in cycles. They understand that what they build today will pay later. And that patience gives them an advantage because most people quit too early. Now imagine this. You build consistently for a year while others start and stop. You refine while others jump around. You stay focused while others get distracted. At the end of that year, you are no longer at the same level, not because you worked harder, but because you stayed, and staying is rare. Now here's something deeper. Builders don't rely on motivation. They rely on standards. They decide what they do, regardless of how they feel. Because feelings change, standards don't. And standards create consistency. Now think about this. If you only act when you feel motivated, your systems will be unstable. But if you act based on standards, your systems will be reliable. That's the difference. Now here's a powerful realization. You are not just building income. You are building a version of yourself that can create income repeatedly. And that version is your greatest asset. Not any system, not any structure. You. Because once you become that person, you can rebuild anything, anywhere, anytime. Now here's where we transition. You've built systems. You've scaled them. You've protected them. You've stabilized them. You've transformed your identity. Now it's time to bring everything together. Because the final stage is integration, taking everything you've learned and turning it into a lifestyle, a way of thinking, a way of acting, a way of building. That's what Chapter 14 is about, because mastery is not what you do occasionally, it's what you live daily. And once you reach that level, there is no going back. Chapter 14. Integration. Living the system. There is a difference between knowing something and becoming it. You can understand systems. You can build structures. You can create cash flow. But until it becomes how you live, it will always feel temporary. This is where mastery begins. Integration. Where everything you've learned stops being something you do occasionally and becomes something you are. Because real power is not in effort. It's in consistency without resistance. Now let's go deeper. Most people treat growth like an event. They work on their finances. They focus for a while. They try to improve, but then they stop. They fall back into old patterns because it was never integrated. It was temporary effort, not permanent identity. and temporary effort creates temporary results. So this is the shift. You don't work on systems. You live in systems. Every decision, every action, every flow of money becomes structured, automatic, intentional. Now imagine this. You no longer think about whether you should manage your money. You just do. You don't debate whether to build. You just build. You don't rely on motivation. You rely on your standard. That is integration. Now, here's something powerful. When something becomes part of your identity, it stops requiring energy because it becomes natural, like brushing your teeth, like waking up, like breathing. And that's what you're creating, a financial life that runs with clarity, not chaos. Now let's go deeper. Integration removes friction because decisions become predefined. You don't ask, should I save this? Should I invest this? Should I build this? You already know, because your system decides for you. And that removes stress, because stress comes from uncertainty, and uncertainty comes from lack of structure. Now here's the truth. The goal was never just money. It was peace. It was control. It was clarity. And integration is what gives you that, because now your financial life is not reactive. It is designed. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, are you still thinking about what you should do, or have you started becoming someone who just does it? Because that difference is everything. Now here's another layer. Integration creates momentum because there are no breaks, no stops, no resets. You don't fall off track because there is no track to fall off. It's just your life. And that continuity builds unstoppable progress. Now think about this. If you live this way for 1 year, your entire reality changes. If you live this way for 5 years, you become unrecognizable, not because of luck, but because of consistency. Now here's something deeper. Integration also protects you, because when systems are part of your identity, you don't abandon them under pressure. You don't panic. You don't revert. You stay stable because it's who you are. Now here's the shift. You are no longer building something external. You are becoming something internal. A system thinker, a flow controller, a builder of structures. And that identity cannot be taken from you. Now, here's where we transition. You've integrated the systems. You've built the identity. You've created structure. Now it's time to elevate one final level, because there is something beyond personal mastery, something that expands your impact beyond your own life. And that is influence, because once you understand systems, you can help others build them. You can create value at a higher level. You can multiply impact. That's where we're going next, because Chapter 15 will show you how to turn your systems into something that extends beyond you, something that creates not just income, but legacy. Chapter 15, From Income to Influence. There comes a moment when building for yourself is no longer enough. You've created systems. You've stabilized your flow. You've built something that works. And now you have a choice. You can stay there, maintain it, protect it, or you can expand. Because true mastery doesn't stop at personal success. It evolves into contribution, into influence, into impact. Now, this is where many people misunderstand. Influence is not about attention. It's not about followers. It's not about visibility. It's about value, real value, the ability to help others. See what you now see. Build what you've built. Avoid what you've already learned. Because once you understand systems, you are no longer just a participant in the economy. You become a creator within it, and creators shape outcomes. Now let's go deeper. Why does influence matter? Because it multiplies everything. Your ideas reach further, your systems expand wider, your impact grows deeper. And that creates something powerful. Leverage at scale, not just financial leverage, human leverage. Because when others apply what you know, your influence compounds. Now think about this. If one system can change your life, how many lives can it change? When shared, that is the shift from income to impact, from personal gain to collective growth. Now, here's something important. You don't need to be perfect to create influence. You need to be real, to share honestly, to teach clearly, to guide practically. Because people don't follow perfection. They follow clarity. And clarity is what you've built. Now here's a deeper layer. When you begin to share what you know, something unexpected happens. You reinforce your own understanding because teaching forces clarity. It sharpens your thinking. It refines your systems. It deepens your awareness. And that makes you stronger. So influence is not just external. It's internal growth as well. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, what do you know now? That could help someone else. Not someday, right now, because that knowledge has value. Now here's the shift. Stop thinking, I need to know everything before I share. Start thinking, what can I share that is useful today? Because usefulness creates connection, and connection creates influence. Now here's something powerful. When you help others build systems, you expand your own ecosystem. Because now you are not just operating within systems. You are creating networks of people who understand systems. And that is exponential growth. Now think about this. A single builder creates systems. A group of builders creates a movement. And movements change realities. Now here's the truth. Most people keep what they learn to themselves, not because they want to, but because they doubt their value. They think, I'm not ready. I don't know enough. Who would listen? But that thinking limits impact, because someone out there is where you used to be. And what is simple for you now is clarity for them. So don't underestimate what you've learned. Now here's the next layer. Influence requires responsibility. Because once people listen, your words matter. Your guidance matters. Your systems matter. So you must stay grounded. Stay honest. Stay real. Because influence without integrity destroys trust. And trust is everything. Now imagine this. You build systems. You stabilize your life. You share what you've learned. Others apply it. They grow. They build. They share. And suddenly, what started with you becomes something bigger. That is legacy, not just money, not just success, but impact that continues beyond your direct effort. Now here's where we transition. You've built systems. You've scaled them. You've protected them. You've stabilized them. You've integrated them. You've expanded into influence. Now there is only one level left, the final shift, because everything you've built so far leads to one ultimate outcome, freedom, not the illusion of it, not temporary relief, but real, sustainable, controlled freedom. That's what Chapter 16 is about. And this is where everything comes together. Dear viewer, share your success story, even if it is small. It can motivate other people to visit the comment section and read it, and it can inspire them. Also, don't be shy about asking questions, and perhaps someone with more experience or someone who has been through this will share the answer. Remember, it is only through communication that people become stronger and better. Thank you. Chapter 16. The Reality of Freedom. Freedom is one of the most misunderstood ideas in the world. People imagine it as escape, no schedule, no pressure, no responsibility. But that is not freedom. That is avoidance. Real freedom is control. Control over your time, control over your energy, control over your direction, and most importantly, control over your money. Because without that, everything else is temporary. Now let's go deeper. Most people think freedom comes from earning enough. If I just make more, if I just reach this number, if I just get there. But numbers don't create freedom. Structure does. Because without structure, more money just creates more problems, more expenses, more pressure, more instability, and the cycle continues. So freedom is not about how much you earn. It's about how your money behaves. Does it require you constantly, or does it support you consistently? That is the difference. Now think about this. If you stop working today, what happens? Does everything stop, or does something continue? Because freedom begins the moment something continues without you. Now here's the truth. Freedom is built, not found, not given, not discovered. Built through systems, through discipline, through consistency, day by day, decision by decision. Now here's something powerful. Freedom is not a finish line. It's a structure, something you design, something you maintain, something you protect. Because even freedom requires responsibility. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, what does freedom mean to you? Not the idea, not the image, but the reality. Because clarity defines direction. Now here's the deeper layer. There are levels of freedom. The first level is financial stability, where your basic needs are covered, where stress begins to reduce. The second level is flexibility, where you have options, where you are not forced into decisions. The third level is independence, where your systems support your life, where your income is not tied to your time. And the final level is control, where you choose your direction completely, where you build, expand, or pause on your terms. That is real freedom. Now here's the shift. Most people try to jump levels. They want independence without stability. They want control without structure. And that creates frustration because you cannot skip the process. You must build step by step. Now think about this. Every system you've built moves you up one level. Every structure you've created reduces your dependency. Every disciplined decision strengthens your position. And slowly, freedom becomes real. Now, here's something important. Freedom does not mean you stop working. It means you choose your work. You decide what to build. You decide where to focus. You decide how to spend your time. And that choice is everything. Because most people don't lack effort. They lack choice. They are forced into routines, forced into decisions, forced into survival. And systems remove that force. Now, here's a powerful realization. Freedom is quiet. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic. It's calm. It's clarity. It's waking up without pressure. It's knowing your systems are working. It's feeling stable, even when the world is uncertain. That's freedom. Now imagine this. You wake up, not because you have to, but because you choose to. You check your systems. They are running. They are producing. They are stable. And your day is yours. That is what you've been building, not just money, but control. Now here's the truth. This is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires consistency. But it is simple because the path is clear. Build systems, protect them, scale them, stabilize them, and over time, freedom emerges. Now here's where we transition. You've understood freedom. You've seen what it really means. Now it's time to confront something important, because even when people reach this level, many lose it. Not because of external forces, but because of internal habits, patterns that return, behaviors that repeat. And if you don't recognize them, you can undo everything you've built. That's what Chapter 17 is about, because protecting freedom is just as important as building it. And this next step will ensure that what you've created lasts. Chapter 17, the patterns that destroy freedom. Most people don't lose freedom overnight. They drift away from it, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, because the same patterns that kept them stuck before never fully disappeared. They were just controlled. And the moment discipline weakens, those patterns return. That's the danger, not external loss. Internal relapse. Now let's go deeper. What are these patterns? Impulse, comfort-seeking, short-term thinking, neglect. They don't look dangerous. They feel normal, even harmless. But repeated over time, they dismantle everything, because systems require consistency, and inconsistency breaks structure. Now think about this. You build strong systems, you create stability, you gain freedom, and then you relax. You loosen your standards, you make small exceptions. It's just this once. It won't matter. I'll fix it later. And slowly, the structure weakens. Not because you didn't know better, but because you stopped applying what you knew. This is where most people fall, not at the beginning, but after success, because success creates comfort, and comfort reduces discipline. Now, here's the truth. Discipline is not something you reach and keep forever. It's something you maintain daily, quietly, consistently, because the moment you stop maintaining it, old habits return. Now, here's something deeper. Freedom creates new challenges, not the same ones you had before. Different ones, subtle ones. You have more time, more options, more flexibility. And without structure, that can lead to drift. Because when nothing is forcing you, you must lead yourself. And self-leadership is the highest level of discipline. Now pause, ask yourself honestly, if no one was watching, if nothing forced you, would you still follow your systems? Because that answer defines your level of control. Now here's another layer. Success can create overconfidence. You start believing, I figured it out. I don't need to be as strict. I can relax now. And that thinking creates gaps. Gaps in discipline, gaps in attention, gaps in structure, and gaps allow problems to grow. Now think about this. A system doesn't collapse because of one big mistake. It collapses because of repeated small ones. Ignored details, delayed decisions, neglected processes, and over time, those small cracks become fractures. Now here's the shift. You must respect what you built, not fearfully, but intentionally, because respect creates consistency. You don't take shortcuts. You don't ignore structure. You don't compromise standards, because you understand what it took to build this. Now, here's something powerful. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want. It's about choosing what matters and staying aligned with it. That's discipline at a higher level, not forced, not external, internal. Now imagine this. You have complete control over your time, no pressure, no obligation, and yet you still choose to follow your systems. You still choose to build. You still choose to maintain structure. That is mastery. Because now you're not driven by necessity, you're driven by identity. Now here's the truth. Most people never reach this level because they depend on pressure, deadlines, expectations, external forces. But when those disappear, they drift. And drifting leads back to dependency. So your goal is simple. Build internal discipline, standards that do not change based on how you feel, because feelings fluctuate. But standards create stability. Now here's a deeper realization. You don't protect freedom once, you protect it continuously, through habits, through awareness, through consistency, every day. Now pause again. Look at your current habits, not your goals, not your intentions, your actual behavior. Does it protect what you've built or slowly weaken it? Because behavior is the truth. Now here's where we transition. You've built systems. You've created freedom. You've understood how to protect it. Now there is one final step, the final shift. Because everything you've learned leads to one ultimate realization. This was never just about money. It was about control, about clarity, about becoming someone who builds, sustains, and expands. That's where we're going next. Chapter 18, the final integration, the full picture, where everything comes together into one clear understanding. And once you see it, you will never go back to thinking the old way again. Chapter 18, the full picture. At the beginning, it felt like this was about money, income, cash flow, systems. You thought you were learning how to earn better, how to build smarter, how to escape the cycle. And you were. But now, you can see it differently, because this was never just about money. It was about control. Control over your direction, control over your decisions, control over your life. Money was just the entry point. Now look at everything you've built. You stopped reacting and started designing. You stopped chasing and started creating. You stopped depending and started structuring. And that shift changed everything. Now here's the truth. Most people never reach this point, not because they can't, but because they don't stay long enough. They hear ideas, but don't apply them. They start, but don't continue. They understand, but don't integrate. And without integration, nothing changes. But you stayed, you listened, you reflected, you followed the process. And now you see the full picture. Now let's bring it all together. Money is not the goal, flow is. Because flow creates stability. Stability creates clarity. Clarity creates control, and control creates freedom. That is the chain. Now think about this. At the beginning, money felt unpredictable. It came and went. It created stress. It controlled your decisions. But now, you understand movement. You understand structure. You understand systems. And suddenly, money is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you direct. That is mastery. Now, here's something deeper. This process changed how you think. You no longer see income the same way. You no longer see effort the same way. You no longer see time the same way. Because you've stepped outside the cycle. You see the structure behind it, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Now pause. Think about who you were before this, how you approached money, how you reacted, how you thought, and compare it to now. The awareness, the clarity, the control, that is transformation, not external, internal. Now here's the most important realization. You don't need permission to live this way. You don't need approval. You don't need validation, because this is not something given to you. It's something you build, and once built, It belongs to you. Now, here's the shift. From this point forward, you are no longer someone trying to improve. You are someone who understands. And understanding creates confidence. Not loud confidence, not visible confidence, quiet, stable, grounded. Now imagine your future, not based on hope, but based on structure. You continue building systems, you refine them, you expand them, you connect them, and over time, your life becomes predictable, not boring, stable, controlled, intentional. That is the difference. Now here's something powerful. You are not limited to what you've built so far, because now you know how to build, and that skill is infinite. You can create new systems, new flows, new structures, again and again, because the process is yours. Now here's the truth. Most people spend their lives trying to earn more. You've learned how to build more, and that difference will separate your future. Now here's where everything becomes real. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Because knowledge without action is wasted. Understanding without application is temporary. So the next step is simple. Apply. Start small. Stay consistent. Build. Because every system you create moves you forward. Now here's your moment. If something in this audiobook shifted your thinking, don't ignore it. If a line stayed with you, remember it. If clarity replaced confusion, act on it. And if you're serious about building this life, consider liking this audiobook as a personal contract with yourself. Not for anyone else, but as a signal that you're not going back to old patterns. Now, here's the final line, the one that brings everything together. You were never one paycheck away from freedom. You were one system away from control. Let that stay with you, because now you see the difference. And once you see it, you build differently. You move differently. You live differently. And there is no going back. Chapter 19. The Quiet Advantage. There is something powerful about what you now understand. It doesn't show immediately. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. But over time, it separates you. Quietly. While others chase, you build. While others react, you design. While others depend, you structure. And the difference becomes visible later. This is the quiet advantage. Now let's go deeper. Most people are focused on speed. How fast can I earn? How quickly can I grow? How soon can I succeed? But speed without structure leads to instability. Because what grows fast without foundation falls fast without warning. So instead of speed, you chose something different. You chose direction. You chose consistency. You chose systems. And those choices compound. Now think about this. Someone chasing fast results may appear ahead. They may earn quickly. They may grow rapidly. But without structure, they remain fragile. And fragility is hidden risk. Now imagine you. You build slowly. You build intentionally. You build with clarity. At first, it doesn't look impressive. But over time, it becomes undeniable. Because your systems hold, they grow, they stabilize, and eventually they surpass everything built on speed alone. That is the advantage. Now here's something deeper. The quiet advantage is not visible daily. It shows up over time, weeks, months, years. Because systems are long-term structures. They don't explode overnight. They expand gradually. And that gradual expansion creates lasting results. Now pause. Ask yourself honestly, are you chasing visible progress or building invisible strength? Because invisible strength creates visible outcomes later. Now here's another layer. Most people want recognition. They want to show progress. They want validation. So they talk. They share plans. They announce goals. They display intentions. But talking does not build systems. As you've seen in behavioral patterns, real progress happens in silence, not in announcements, because systems are built in focus, in consistency, in repetition, not in attention. Now here's the shift. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to announce anything. You need to build quietly, consistently, or relentlessly, and let the results speak later. Now imagine this. While others are distracted, you are refining. While others are switching, you are staying. While others are starting over, you are compounding. And one day, the difference becomes clear. Not because you said anything, but because your life reflects it. Now here's something powerful. The quiet advantage removes pressure because you are not competing. You are constructing. You are not reacting. You are designing. And design is personal. It follows your pace, your direction, your vision. Now think about this. When you stop comparing, you gain focus. When you gain focus, you build better. And when you build better, you grow faster over time. Now here's the truth. Comparison creates urgency. Urgency creates mistakes. Mistakes break systems. So you must stay grounded. Stay focused. Stay in your lane. Because your path is not meant to look like anyone else's. Before this, you reacted to circumstances. Now, you design your structure. Before this, you depended on effort. Now, you build systems. That is not small. That is everything. Now, here's the truth. Nothing will force you to apply this. No one will remind you. No one will check on you. No one will push you. That's the test. Because real change happens when no one is watching. Now pause, take a moment, and ask yourself honestly, what will I do next? Not what sounds good, not what feels right. What will you actually do when this ends? Because that answer is your future. Now here's the shift. You don't need to change your entire life today. You need to take one step, one decision, one action, one system, and begin. Because beginning is what separates intention from reality. Now imagine this. You take that one step, you stay consistent. You build slowly, you refine, you protect, and over time, everything changes, not suddenly, but permanently, because systems create lasting change. Now here's something powerful. You are no longer starting from zero. You are starting from awareness. And awareness is the advantage most people never gain. Because once you see the system, you cannot go back to blindness. Now here's the final truth. You don't need luck. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You need action. Consistent action. Aligned action. Because action is what builds everything. Now here's your final call. If this audiobook gave you clarity, honor it. If something shifted inside you, protect it. If you see your life differently now, act on it. Because clarity without action becomes regret. Now take this with you, not as motivation, but as direction, not as inspiration, but as structure. Because this was never meant to stay here. It was meant to move with you into your days, into your decisions, into your life. Now, here is the final line, the one that defines everything. You don't build freedom by wishing for it. You build it by designing systems that make it inevitable. And from this moment forward, that is your path. You don't chase. You don't react. You don't depend. You build, you design, you control. And because of that, your life will never return to what it was. This is not the end. This is your beginning.